It's the state of the dungeon. It's a video that Rob does about his games. Yeah! Hello, friends. I am Rob, and I am here to give my State of the Dungeon address for the game that took place on September 1st, the year 2022. The game was Anime Campaign. Oh my goodness. This is a game that I've never run before, and my players had never played before. I found out about it because I stumbled, through my son, into a online YouTube cartoon based upon Anime Campaign, the role-playing game, called Epithet Erased. It's a great, great cartoon. And I guess the next chapter is going to be a novel of it because they couldn't get the movie quality or animation to kind of make it, or a slot in a video streaming platform to do it. They'd used Verve for their first one, but quick sum up of what an Anime Campaign is. It is a game in which you play characters in an anime world, and as such the rules are a bit different from any that you're familiar with. It's modern, basically, but people generally tend to be extremes of character, more so than just Joe Average, although there are certainly some of those running around. Almost all the camera time is going to be occupied by people of very strong personalities one way or the other, or any way, honestly. Now, a couple of things make this different from the real world, obviously. Number one, some things that you really have to worry about in the real world don't really matter. For example, guns don't kill people. If only, right? But yes, you get shot with a gun, you take a little bit of stamina, and okay, it happened. You go on. It takes a lot of shots to take a person down on average. People still use guns, though, because, if you have a weapon and the other person doesn't, well... But one of the things is all the characters have a weapon in this game. If you're an active heroic character, you have a weapon. Now, the way we're playing, every character also is possessed of an epithet, which is a superpower based on a single word imprinted on their soul. It can't really be taken away, except by very special circumstances. And it will create powers based around that word somehow. In the character creation, I gave them each player a choice of 3 words. They chose one of them. I created 5 abilities using those words, so that would be their 5 active superpowers. Some passive ability that always helps them, again based on that epithet. And then a talent based on their character concept of something they can do, and generally, oftentimes those also tied into their epithet because it just kind of worked out well that way, honestly. So everybody was given a choice out of 5 abilities. They picked 3 of the abilities that appealed to them the most, oftentimes without understanding the mechanics to them, rolled for their 2 stats, which are, 2 primary stats, are... Why am I drawing a blank? P. There's definitely a P word. Their 2 abilities are stamina, which is the fuel for their powers. Every time they use their abilities, they drain a little stamina. It also is what is taken off when they get attacked. Drop down to 0 stamina, you're knocked out. The other one is proficiency, which is a basic determination of how advanced you are in your knowledge of use of your epithet, and that can actually increase during gameplay. Clever use of an ability, for instance, or figuring out somebody's epithet can give you proficiency. Also, winning battles gets you proficiency too, so that can be pretty good. So, as you roll proficiency, you get new abilities with your epithets, you improve on your talents a bit, maybe you even upgrade your weapon to be a bit more effective. Something like that. So, boy, did I end up with a motley crew of characters, who I guess I have to describe to make this make any sense, don't I? And we'll just go around the table. The first person was Klaus. Klaus is the mall Santa. Bear in mind it was the 1st of September, which I chose to be the date that this was taking place on, so their mall was pretty progressive. It's the Townsville Mall. And they decided to start Santa Claus up early, September 1st. Oof. First day on the job for the year. His epithet has been discovered by the rest of the group, so I can confirm that it is premature. The word is premature. So his powers involve getting in front of other people's stuff or making them do things too soon so that it spoils their attempt or makes it harder. Yeah, I know there's a bunch of not so innocent things that I could have gone with, but I, honorably avoided those as much as I could. Then there's Tim. Tim is a writer, and his epithet, which has been revealed to be bibliography. No, I'm just kidding. So then there's Tim. Tim is a young writer, and he has an epithet. The group has discovered that his epithet is biography. So all of his powers involve books, naturally, but also he has the ability to channel somebody who would have had a biography, a famous person, and borrow their skills for a time. In the adventure at hand, he would use this, but hypothetically, if, say, he needed to solve a complex problem, he might channel Albert Einstein and be able to use his vast intellect. If he needed to lead people, he might choose to take on the personality of a great leader and speaker. So these are all things that he could do. It's pretty flexible, and I expected it to be rather hard to get for the others to guess. Then we have Dick. Dick is an elderly gentleman who works at a piano and musical instrument store in the mall. Not a place that's really hopping. But his epithet is harbor. And that was a complicated one. One aspect of harbor means that you protect, much like an oceanside harbor protects the vessels inside of it from bad weather. Just by being around Dick, you are safer, because things don't hurt as much when Dick is around. He also has the ability to take blows for other people, although he suffers an effect for those blows for the people that he protects. But he is pretty amazing at defending people. Also, he can make people harbor doubts by planting seeds of confusion in their minds, so he's got some neat abilities. But, yeah, his was tricky for people to guess as well, but eventually they did. Then there was Bob. Bouncing Bob. Bob is a local jock, an athlete, very, very gifted in the athletics, and his epithet is ball. So he can create balls that he can throw or drop on people, which he has done. His weapon of choice is a shot put. Yikes. And most of his powers involve him being bouncy, where he can avoid damage by literally bouncing. He can, well, that's basically his shtick, and it's pretty darn effective in a fight. He can go all over the place, and his character is pretty gifted at that one. But his also was the first epithet to be guessed at. Then there's Billy Bubba. Billy Bubba is a husband searching for that present for his wife in the mall, and his epithet has not been guessed yet, interestingly enough. However, he has demonstrated powers to be able to create Roman candles that he shoots fireworks at people, and he can also throw a great party, which can heal people with the power of cake, which is cool. As far as the actual epithet, though, people haven't figured it out, and I'm not going to spoil it here. But he's an interesting fellow. His weapon of choice is a bottle inside of a brown paper bag. Classy. Then we have Mel, which everybody thinks is melodrama because she dresses all in black, and she uses a cane, which is also her weapon of choice, and her powers seem to be berating people. She yells a lot, And her powers generally create generally sad things. People feel really bad when she lays into them. She can even cause thunder clouds to appear above people and zap them with periodic zaps of lightning. She's got some pretty spooky powers, and she hasn't had her epithet guessed yet, so who knows what that is, but she's definitely not she hasn't shirked away from any fights yet. And then we have Glenda. Glenda works at the Not Topic. She is a clerk, but she is also pretty goth. She's got lots of piercings. She wears black clothes, black everything, cat socks. And her powers allow her to summon a horde of identical cats to attack people. She could duplicate herself a couple of times. And she can also steal somebody else's power and use it once. So they've discovered that her epithet is Copy, and it seems to be a pretty potent one for her. So that's the cast of characters revealed. Now, the story. They are in Townsville, which is a nice enough town, but the exception is this is Anime World. So just to get to the mall, you're generally going to pass by 4 or 5 people having a superpowered battle in the streets. The police seem to they've given up trying to stop these things. They just corral the losers for the most part. But about 1 in every 20 people has an epithet. So there's enough in town to have all these fights going on around various people. But a lot of people's epithets keep them quiet so that, you know, other people don't challenge them to fights or try to keep life a little bit simpler. All the characters are in the Townsville Mall, which is a nice mall. It's got multiple wings out, and they're in the food court. Now, one thing that is the trigger point is that there is a craze going on. There is a collectible card game called Monster Zoo Collectors, where you collect with these cards monsters that you keep in your zoo, you feed and you enhance them, and then you bring them to other people's zoos and they fight. And the person who has the greater one steals an ante from the loser. And people love this game. There's a huge craze about it. Most of the player characters don't care about it as much, but nobody can deny that they know about this. And in the food court, there's lots of people playing this game, especially the younger crowd, but there are even some adults playing. Then all of a sudden, a group of 4 kids, really about 15 years old, dressed like budget pirates with life preserver vests or ill-fitting vests and jeans with the bottoms slashed and tied up and shoes that have been markered over so they kind of look a little bit more like boots, are being led by a guy who is dressed up a bit better as a pirate. And he announces himself as Cardbeard. And he has all of these Monster Zoo collector cards in his beard, which is a fake, but it's a pretty good one. And he has his eye patch up, and he looks at everybody and says, "All right, surrender your cards now." And then all of a sudden, tables start launching cards into the air along with the tables, food, drink, whatever, just whoosh. And it becomes clear that one of the guys dressed up as the henchman actually has an epithet that can do that. So the group immediately moves into act. And that's when the hilarity started. All the characters got to introduce themselves, several coming out of the coffee shop across the way. Santa came down from his new castle. Billy Bubba had his chili dog knocked out of his bun, which he's still holding, which now holds a table leg. And he decides he's going to move up and scrap with one of these kids that's causing these problems. And Santa Claus is going to move in and give a flying kick to Cardbeard. And they both roll a critical failure and splat onto the ground. It set a mood. So this huge fight takes place. All the characters have epithets, so many of them decide they're going to try to use their epithets right away. Cardbeard stays out of range of the group for quite a while because the minions are out in front. And you kind of got to get through the minions to get to Cardbeard unless you're being clever about it, or you have something that you can move around them or move them to them. I mean, that's the job of minions. In this particular case, they didn't. They were having about as much fun trying to take down these 15-year-olds who themselves were attacking by flicking cards at them. Minimal damage, but they were really just there to tie up the players and let them look good, which wasn't working very well because statistically this game is very simple, and this is the mechanic. If you roll a 1, you have a critical failure. A 20, critical success. No matter what you declared, it does work, no matter how crazy, nonsensical it is. If you roll a 2 through 5, that's just a straight failure. If you roll a 6 or a 7, you succeed, but it's not exactly what you wanted, or it's diminished somehow. There's a complication that comes up. An 8 through a 14 is a success. Unvarnished, it works. And a 16 to a 19 is a success, but a really good one, and something beneficial comes out of it. It's extra effective. So as you can see, you only fail on a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. A statistician could tell me how unlikely it is, but it felt like everybody was rolling 1 through 5 over and over and over again. Poor Dick had a special foil card come falling into his tightly slicked back hair, and he was immediately mobbed by toddlers trying to get this rare foil card out of his hair, to the part where he was just trying to shoo them away as best as he could without hurting anybody. It was rather comical, but he kept failing at doing that. When Mel tried to bring the mood down by causing the thundercloud to appear, she critically failed and caused the sprinklers to all turn on all the people who were shopping, and on the tile floor, which is now slick because it's wet, and also on all these cheap Chinese cards that everybody was going around. So yeah, destroying most of them. Good times, good times. But a couple things of note. Klaus managed to hook one of the kids with his candy cane and send him flying up, and he got stuck on one of the chandeliers, which started falling off. That was scary for the people underneath, certainly. But all these epithets flying off back and forth. A couple were more low-key. For example, Tim's just chucking books. He's causing books to appear out of his pocket, and he's throwing them and hitting people. He tries to dig up some dirt on Cardbeard, but nothing really comes to mind. So it's more of the book barrage for the most part from him. Until he decides he wants to pull out his weapon, which is a 3-foot dictionary, and start just slamming people with it. Which is very effective. It's a big book and it hurts. Eventually, though, most of the offense to take Cardbeard down ended up being put into place by Bob, who one of his abilities with Ball is to summon a cannon, because cannons fire these things too. And he shot Cardbeard and knocked him flying with a critical success. And he smashed into a Spiel's sports store, slammed into the display full of basketballs, and was half buried. And then when Glenda duplicated his power and caused another cannon to appear and slam into him as well, that was the knockout shot, which caused some bowling balls that were up in a rack to fall down and finish him off very painfully. So, fortunately it's anime and nobody really gets hurt, right? You can hit somebody with a cannonball and it's just 8 points of damage. So, the group got to show off some of their dazzling range of abilities. Santa Claus was firing snowballs out of his candy cane launcher. That was fun. For the most part, Dick didn't show off anything except that he always has theme music going. He's got the drift that this is anime and therefore it's on film, so he's giving himself a soundtrack, which is fun musical references the whole time, which is kind of cute. His weapon of choice is a conductor's baton, which he was trying to use to smack kids, honestly, until one grabbed it and started going zhoo, 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 before he could get it back. You cannot be permanently disarmed from your weapon of choice, so somehow you always end up getting it back, or you pull another one out, or what have you. So, Cardbeard was eventually knocked out by the group, piling on with all of their different abilities. Mel used her darkness ability to cast the pallor of fear. She also worked to help save Dick from the toddlers, which was nice. She eventually dispersed the toddler mob, too, with her ability to influence a crowd. Plus, the foil card basically fell to pieces in the water that was raining down on them, so yeah. Finally, the Cardbeard ended up fighting them by summoning an anchor and trying to wield it against them. That was the final stroke that sent him into the ball stand. So, after the fight was over, players all restored back to full stamina, because when you win a battle, you get back up to full automatically. That's the way the world works. And also, we had a quick Q&A to see if they could guess what the epithets were of their assailants. One of the henchmen, who was launching tables, and eventually, he didn't get a chance to use many of his other abilities. Everybody has 3 abilities. His ability was Rocket, because he could cause things to blast off like a rocket. And questionable effectiveness on how that worked for his team. And of course, the Cardbeard, his was Anchor. And they guessed that, so somebody got a point for discovering that. So, they were then approached by a large man in black, the black uniform of a officer of the Townsville Police Department, who identified himself as a captain of the Division of Collectible Card Games Crime. Apparently they have one. So, he asked if, since they aren't scared of fighting these card pirates, that perhaps they could help out the Townsville PD. He could deputize them, and they could help him with another gang that has come up that has threatened the good card-playing citizens of Townsville. If they'd be so kind, there might be accommodation in it for them, and other benefits. But the rest of the PD was often the other wing, the north and west wing, taking on more of these card gangs. And in exchange, they asked them to go after the west wing, or the east wing, which was currently the domain of a gang calling themselves the Chessmasters. They were led by somebody who has a epithet involving fire in some fashion. So, that's what they decided to do. And when they went there, they saw that a group was engaged in combat with another one, but had just won. The leader was dressed all in red, with blonde hair styled up, sunglasses on to look cool, red fingerless gloves, and all of his gang members, who they had thrashed the other gang, so of course they were all at full stamina because they won. They all wore red in some fashion. The more red they wore, the higher up they were in the group. The lieutenant had a red leather jacket on, and all of them were carrying around implements from a fireplace set. So, for example, the lieutenant had a poker in his hand. One of them had one of those brushes that you use for fireplace. Another one had the tongs, and another one had one of those dust pans. So yeah, they're comically attired and arrayed, but this fight wasn't a joke. The group stood back and started firing off their long-range artillery, which wasn't so effective. Again, the group just could not roll well. A variety of disastrous strikes and just outright failures blunted the alpha strike the group had against the leader. And it turned out that the lieutenant of the group had an epithet too. His involved creating patches of oil and tar as an attack. His epithet was revealed to be Oil. And that worked out really well because his boss, Red, He could generate flame. He could create big fireballs. He could zap somebody with a gout of flame. And I will say right now, with the mechanic of being able to guess people's epithets, I need to do a better job of, in proper form, screaming out their names and saying things. It's only appropriate to yell out the name of your epithet. That's not your epithet, but the name of your ability. And I need to get better at doing that. But it was a proper fight, because the big guy was insulted when the old man tried to convince him that he didn't have an epithet. He's like, "You're just a Mundy." And he used his epithet to try to make him believe that, but he resisted and goes, "No, I'm not. I got fire coming out of my hand." He hit them with a fireball. The group had disabled one of the henchmen by this time by just teaming up. And the fireball caused a fire zone that they were all in danger of taking stamina damage if they were going to stand in the middle of it. So the group started to disperse. One of the henchmen, though, the one with the dust shovel, slammed Bob with a natural 20, which when he used his power to take only 1 point of damage and be really rubbery and resilient, slammed him all the way down into the ground, so he shot back up and plowed into the ceiling, stuck there with just his legs wiggling out. That didn't slow him down, though, because he kept summoning medicine balls and just dropping them blindly below, which actually did take out one of the other henchmen. And then he turned around and he rolled another natural 20 and smashed into poor Dick, and because he's an older man, it hit him in the hip, which caused him to go prone for the rest of the fight. Sort of. It was starting to kind of look, even though there were only 2 epithet users and one henchman who was clearly punching above his weight class, the group was having some real difficulties. And that's when Billy Bubba revealed that he could throw a party. He declared it to be National Fire Prevention Day, wheeled out a cake, gave everybody conical hats, little party hats, and they all got 8 stamina back, but it stopped the fight for a moment. That round completely ended. Everybody just stood around munching cake, talking to each other politely, until the next round ticked and the fight restored. And it just so happened that the 2 people who got to go first were Klaus and Bob. Klaus immediately hits Red with a snowball, natural 20, right in his face. Caught him right in the mouth, so it filled his mouth up with snow. Bob rolls a natural 20 with his cannonball shot. So we're just like, well, you can't kill somebody with a cannonball, but what could you badly do? They resolved that it shoved the snow down his throat, and the cannonball replaced the snowball in his mouth, so now his mouth is open with a good 6-pounder, which they'll probably need a doctor to get out. It was so funny. Their luck immediately flipped after that party. Red was just about out, and they finally finished him off. He didn't have much fight. Flambeau, the one who had the oil abilities, managed to tar up Klaus, and he tarred up Tim. But he looked around, and after they knocked out the remaining minions, he realized he didn't want to be there anymore. So he used his oils well that ends well ability to slip out of his jacket and snake out of the place without taking any more damage. And that is where it ended. It was one of the most chaotic scenes I've ever seen in a role-playing game. This simple mechanic, when you strip away building a character, when you strip away having abilities that all add, and it's just the result of a 20-sided die roll, your action lives or dies on it, it was chaos. Pure, unbridled chaos. Failures of a scope I've never seen, and then all of a sudden a twist of fate, and just the party was amazing. Absolutely world beaters. Many people got to use all of their epithets abilities, and got to feel really cool, like cool superheroes in this story. The people I think who enjoyed it the most are the people who are the best at describing their actions. And I really would exhort people, when you're coming up with something to do, try to be as expressive and describe it as being as awesome as you can. Every single thing, even going over and helping somebody up off the floor, because if you roll a 20, it can be that awesome. And since your chances of failing aren't very good, you can dare to try some really fun stuff and have fun with this game. It is not a game for a person who wants to think of a game tactically, where you keep yourself safe, where you mitigate disaster and danger. That isn't this game. This game is about just opening it up, having fun, and oh my gosh, we laughed almost the whole time at each other's misfortunes, but also at the great successes, roaring with triumph, groaning at failures, faces clutched with a 1 coming up, but then can't wait to see what's going to happen. They looked like everybody was just as eager to see how I was going to narrate how things fell apart for a certain attempt as they were about how awesome something was going to be. And that is a great role-playing night. This was one of the most satisfying role-playing nights I've had, and even though I'm exhausted now, I'm still buzzing about how good this turned out for everybody, I think. Everybody said they had a good time, and I trusted them. And now that we've had a session like that and gotten some practice, I hope they carry forth the lessons of this experience, in that it doesn't help to restrain yourself when role-playing is involved. You've got to do the great things that you yourself can't do. Dare and try, and maybe this person is able to do those kind of things. And sometimes you just got to open it up and take a shot at something that's wild and crazy, and when it works, you'll remember that moment for a very long time. And if it blows up in your face, well, you'll remember that for a long time too, and maybe it'll bring a smile to your face. But it was a lot of fun. This is definitely a great, lighthearted game, simple game to whip up a premise, simple game to make NPCs, really, because I don't have to get as elaborate as a PC. I can just whip up a power, figure out how much damage they can take, and go to it. It's really simple. And all you need is a random word generator, by the way. That's important if you're going to run this game. A random word generator is easily available. I know there's at least 3 of them online. When you're able to throw together such great random words that you wouldn't think of, it really challenges your creativity as a game master. But playing this game is just pure joy. So, that's my take on it. Thank you very much for joining me. I look forward to 2 weeks from now where we'll finish up this story. It's only going to be a 2-week session, but eventually they find the person who is at the heart of this, and the mystery will be revealed. And the great thing is, if people can't show up, if we need a bridge game, this would be perfect for them to pick up these characters again and have another great adventure in Chapter 2. So, thanks one and all. I'm Rob, the Dungeon Tutor, even. If you want to go check out my Dungeon Tutor site, I've got all kinds of stuff, but that's really wasn't what this was about. Until next time, thanks and farewell.